Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, June 27th through Sunday, July 3rd, 2022. This week we have a few events going on. We've got a new moon in Cancer happening at 7 degrees of Cancer, so that would be the most notable event, I would say. And new moons are really great for beginnings, of course, so that's where you set your intention for the following month, and sometimes longer depending on where the new moon falls, where it falls in your chart, etc. But new moons are beginnings also because they begin that sign even more so. So we're already in Cancer season. Sun has already entered Cancer, so that was kind of the first beginning of Cancer. But the second beginning really starts with once the new moon happens in that sign as well. So the new moon in Cancer will really immerse us in the themes of Cancer, especially because moon rules Cancer as well, and this is a new moon. So we're entering the themes of early summer for everyone in the northern hemisphere, especially up for you those up in those temperate latitudes where you more experience seasons. You can really experience the themes of Cancer playing out right before your eyes in a more vivid way through the seasons as well. But for everyone in general, we are immersing ourselves into the themes of Cancer. So that would be home, family, and emotion. So we're all a little bit more in touch with our own emotion and intuition at this time. So that's really great just for having that kind of clarity. Clarity to know what are your beliefs, what are your desires, where are you at really deep down? What's your bottom line? What's your kind of foundation? So that's really great. Speaking of clarity as well, we also have Neptune turning retrograde at 25 degrees Pisces this week. And this is actually pretty cool because I honestly would say Neptune is the most difficult planet. Okay, I know some astrologers they always think of Saturn or what have you, but with Saturn you at least know what you're talking about. You know what the issue is, and you know what you have to do about it. With Neptune, it's not nearly that simple. It's very confusing. So, as Neptune turns retrograde, it almost kind of goes offline a little bit. Planets, when they turn retrograde, are a little bit more sedated. Their effects are a little bit more kind of ethereal or non physical. They're hard to define. And, because Neptune typically makes things a little bit confusing, hard to quantify, as Neptune turns retrograde, uh, it does multiple things. One thing that it does is it allows us to sort of reassess what are we desiring on a kind of global or what are we desiring as a species or as a society. We can kind of re-examine things of that nature in a sort of subconscious way. But the other main tangible effect I would say is that things will actually become a little bit more clear, especially pertaining to larger events like societal events, historical events, political figures. We may get a little bit more clarity in all of those areas. So that's something to look forward to. Otherwise, after the moon will be waxing. I almost said waning. The moon will be waxing from very late Gemini, and then it will already reach Virgo by the end of this week. So without further ado, let's get into the day by day play forecast. So we start out Monday, June 27th. You can see moon is still in Gemini. And what's interesting is at this point, the focus is actually not so much on Cancer. Yes, the sun is there and we are in Cancer season, but typically the sun is joined by the inner planets, by, at least maybe Mercury or Venus or both. And right now, there's no planets in Cancer whatsoever, other than the sun, if we want to call it a planet. So at this point, we're still before the new moon. The moon is still in Gemini. Moon is winding down, so as the moon is in its sort of last cycle, the last part of its cycle in Gemini, things are very non-physical in nature. And because Gemini is such an imaginative, mental sign as it is, our imaginations will be very vivid at this time. So this could be good for creativity, but we can also kind of get lost in our own thoughts or feelings. We're kind of all living in our own heads at this point. We do have two aspects happening on Monday. That would be Mercury sextiling Chiron. Mercury at 16 degrees Gemini, sextiling Chiron at 16 degrees Aries. So this can be good. I kind of like this actually. Chiron in Aries, of course, is bringing up all these personal wounds and traumas. We're very expressive about our wounds with Chiron in Aries. We're very demanding to be understood and to be heard. And with Mercury in the chatty sign of Gemini forming an aspect to Chiron in Aries, I think we're maybe a little bit more able to maybe communicate our personal traumas or wounds are. We're able to communicate those in an effective way because Mercury is very strong in Gemini, and A sextile is a harmonious aspect. So I actually really like this. There could be some degree of compromise or because Chiron in Aries is great for, shouting your message out to the world, but if you don't judge your audience, it may fall on deaf ears. So Mercury and Gemini, I really like this. There, it adds a little bit of diplomatic skills and maybe some, kind of ability to use words to describe some of these emotions. So if there are, protests going on in the world, this could help alleviate some of the tensions there. And for the rest of us as well, we just may be able to communicate a little bit more effectively. We may be able to communicate kind of some deep things, maybe some deep things from our past, things of that nature. And otherwise, we do have Mars also sextiling Saturn. Mars at 24 degrees Aries makes a sextile to Saturn at 24 degrees Aquarius. This is pretty cool as well for societal cohesion and things of that nature. So Saturn in Aquarius is putting this restriction on technology and on our ability to congregate into groups. Now, Saturn is retrograde as well, just like Neptune is turning retrograde this week. So, this means that Saturn's energies are offline. So, we're kind of reassessing the structure to technology, the structure to our ability to get into groups, things of that nature. So, with Mars and Aries making this sextile to Saturn in retrograde in Aquarius, there may be some kind of demand for individual expression. So, so it's this kind of mutually beneficial relationship between the structure of society and the rules and regulations and the demands of the individual. So the individuals must be heard, and at this time, it looks like that is possible in the grand scheme of things. So overall, starting your Monday, starting off your week here, it looks like a relaxed Monday overall. It looks like people are very able to communicate. Yes, they may be kind of in their own minds, in their own heads, but that could be. I mean, that can be kind of good just because things aren't really intense like they can be on a Monday sometimes. So overall, it looks like a relaxed start to the week. People are extra able to communicate effectively and to have their individual needs heard and met. Okay, let's jump forward to June 28th. To Tuesday, June 28th, we have the new moon in Cancer. It's happening at 7 degrees of Cancer. So you can see here, it looks like it's happening in afternoon, late afternoon to early evening Eastern Standard Time. And then you can just adjust if you are multiple time zones away from the Eastern Standard Time Zone. So the new moon in Cancer, 7 degrees Cancer, it only makes one major aspect, but that aspect is dead on. It does square Jupiter at 7 degrees Aries. So, okay, so typically a new moon in Cancer, I would expect to be. I typically experience new moons as being relatively relaxed, peaceful, because this is the least physically oriented portion of the moon cycle. So this is where, yes, things are beginning, but in a very kind of quiet or behind the scenes way. It's where you're planting the seed. The seed has not yet sprouted yet. You're not seeing the effects of this new beginning yet. It's just starting to begin. However, this new moon being in Cancer, Cancer can go kind of multiple ways. I mean, Cancer is a very sensitive, emotional sign, but it also likes peace and stability. But here, the way it's aspected, it makes a square to Jupiter and Aries, which is very volatile. So this can kind of expand and blow things up. It can blow up our sensitivities and blow up our emotions. So there could be some kind of outburst, maybe people just being a little bit snarky because they're very sensitive, maybe a little bit irritable or moody. I could definitely see all of that occurring. On the plus side, we do have that confidence of knowing exactly how we feel. That's exactly why there could be kind of some irritability or some, sparks flying or people getting on each other's nerves because they're a little bit more stubborn, they're more sure of themselves. So I mean, there's a pro and a con to everything. But it can be very good though to be so certain of how you feel, and your intuition and all that is very strong at this point. So mixing in the square with Jupiter, it could expand some of those positive attributes as well. So you could have extra motivation, extra desire. You might know exactly what you want today. So that could be really really useful. Other than the new moon, we do have, Sun squaring Jupiter, which I kind of already talked about because Sun and Moon square Jupiter at the same time. That's the same. Just a different way of saying the new moon is squaring Jupiter. So yeah, again, there's that kind of clash there. Clashing, having a square between Cancer and Aries is always extra volatile because squares are volatile, but then you're mixing Cancer and Aries, which are two cardinal signs, cardinal water, cardinal fire. Fire and water make steam, it makes things very confusing and hard to see. And also, Aries and Cancer are both so sure of themselves. They're so confident in what they're doing, just in very different ways. Cancer's more, introverted, Aries is more outgoing. And so mixing them, they kind of don't mix. It's like mixing oil with water. So it can be volatile, and sparks can definitely fly. I don't know if that's even a phrase. I don't know why I keep saying that, but yeah, people could be extra emotional because both Cancer and Aries are very emotional. They can be very emotionally intense. So yeah, if there's extra, people being moody or irritable on Tuesday, I wouldn't think too much of it. It should be resolved by the next day. Otherwise, two quick things here on Tuesday still. We have Venus sextiling Jupiter. I really, really love this. This is beautiful. Venus and Jupiter are both benefic planets, so they're both planets of abundance, and they make things generally easy and positive. And the sextiles are harmonious aspects. So having a harmonious aspect between two of the easiest, most abundant springing planets is all good. There's hardly any cons at all. Venus and Gemini is showing that our desire and our attraction is more intellectual in nature right now. We're desiring intellectual stimulation. We're desiring pleasant conversations and things of that nature. Maybe complex stories, movies, books, etc. And then Jupiter and Aries is kind of expanding all our egos. We're maybe more sure of what we want to do. We're more individualistic at this time. So combining both can be really great for creating a sense of kind of adventure, or especially wanting to be very social, wanting to socially interact with a lot of people, wanting to try new things. We are experiencing a lot of abundance and pleasure with newness. Both Gemini and Aries get bored very easily. They like trying new things, they like adventures, they like talking to new people, things of that nature. So this aspect is showing that that's where the desire, attraction, the pleasure, a lot of the focus is on that area today. And then lastly, Tuesday is by far the most eventful day of the week. We have Neptune turning retrograde on Tuesday as well. So, here, one moment. Okay, I try to keep the windows open because it gets really hot in here if I don't, but you guys like me on camera, so this is what we're doing. Anyway, Neptune turning retrograde on Tuesday. Okay, so again, Neptune's kind of going offline, and I can't help but to say I really like this because Neptune makes things so confusing. It really does. I mean, Neptune going offline, the other effects of it would be kind of just re-examining the themes of Neptune, kind of going back, looking over the past in these areas. And Neptune, of course, does affect us more globally in scale. It affects, society or history. It affects long-term trends. So we're kind of going back and re-examining maybe recent events, recent political or, international events. We may kind of go back and maybe we may get more insight over international events which transpired over the last several months or maybe even the past couple of years. Other than that, we may kind of re-examine our relationship to arts, music, to spirituality, all of things of that nature. We may get more truth from, maybe events or trends from the spiritual and artistic, communities from the last several months as well. And then otherwise, more generally, I'm just going to say it one more time because this is what I'm personally most pumped about is just almost not removing Neptune's energy, but turning it kind of inward, turning it backward, sedating it, as I like to say, taking it down a notch. I can't help but to like that because again, Neptune makes everything confusing. Neptune is great for getting lost in this kind of subjective experience where it's like art. It's like how art is different for everyone looking at it. Depending on the individual, they may have a very different experience from the same art piece, right? It's subjective in nature. So that's what Neptune does. Neptune turns everything like that, and so it's impossible to quantify am I really seeing this? Can I count on this? Is it realistic? Am I seeing something as better than it is or worse than it is? Am I being paranoid? It's impossible to tell with Neptune's energy. So it's like we just kind of dull all that into the background and just turn it down a notch. So things will be a little bit more crisp, a little bit more crystal clear for these next several months with Neptune retrograde. So I can't help but to put a positive spin on that because that's how I see it. Let's go forward to Wednesday, June 29th. We have just one major, well, it's not a major aspect, but Moon continues through Cancer. Um, I like this just because we're kind of getting away from that intense aspect of the new moon squaring Jupiter and all that. We do have Moon sextiling Uranus today. It looks like late afternoon Eastern Standard Time. So this is really nice because Moon is in Cancer, right? And Moon in Cancer is very strong. It makes us more emotional, more intuitive, all that good stuff, all those kind of lunar themes. And as it sextiles Uranus, Uranus is great for triggering awakenings and having epiphanies. So combining this intuitive planet with a positive relationship to a planet that brings epiphanies, I could definitely see intuition being very, very strong right now. And this could go kind of both ways. Now, intuition, just like any kind of other mechanism you'd have, just like thoughts or feelings, it's not always correct, right? We can have intuition that is incorrect. I've heard major, established psychics say that even if they were to get it right 75, 80% of the time, that's a good psychic. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a skill. It's a sense. It's something that we work on and we use kind of like a muscle to try to get stronger, right? So, being so intuitive, we could be intuitive about things that are not always accurate. People could be really acting upon their hunches, and this really applies to most of this week, but especially Wednesday. You'll have intuition come to you, but I think that it's really great to, besides just using intuition, you can also use thoughts or feelings or both to kind of just check it and be like, okay, does that actually make sense? That's how I do it anyway. The intuition will come first, but then you can run it through your mind and be like, I got this random message, but does that actually make sense? And, if it does, then if it checks out, you can be like, okay, yeah, that's a legitimate message. But not everybody does this, though. Some people get intuitive messages and they just act on it. And so it may or may not be correct. So that's just something to look out for. But on the positive note, Wednesday I would highlight as a day for having just epiphanies, having awakenings or information come out of nowhere. That could definitely happen. Thursday, June 30th. Moon makes some interesting aspects as it approaches the last several degrees of Cancer. So, okay, so yeah, right before the Moon enters Leo, it trines Neptune. And this is especially interesting just because Neptune, of course, just turned retrograde. So any aspects that any planets make with Neptune are especially powerful, potent, meaningful, etc. I'll talk more about that in just a moment. But then just after that, the moon also opposes Pluto, which is really interesting. So, let's see, moon trines Neptune, opposes Pluto. Yeah. So, okay, so as the moon trines Neptune, this is really important for seeing. And when I say see, it's more on an emotional, intuitive level, feeling, I guess I could say. As the moon trines Neptune, we can really feel where we're going because we are going in a different direction now that Neptune has turned retrograde. And again, this is more kind of on a group, on a societal or national or international level, global level. So we can kind of feel, okay, where are we going? Like we can intuit some maybe new truths about what's really been going on the past several months, and then where are we going in the near future. And again, that's kind of tricky because intuition is not always correct, but we may be able to feel some of this. And moon trining Neptune is also just generally great for getting a kind of inspiration or creativity. If you're an artistic or creative person, this would be a good day for you. And then later, just not very long at all after Moon trines Neptune, Moon also opposes Pluto. This is a little bit different. Our summers are the beginning of our summer for the last decade and a half really has been kind of colored by the sun and the moon opposing Pluto. Um, I'm just saying this because the sun is beginning to get within range of the opposition of Pluto as well. So this is a dark aspect, I'm not going to lie. Now, because we're talking about the moon here, this is super brief. It would just last, a few hours, not even the whole day, really. But moon opposing Pluto, I would say that you'll experience it as a kind of generally dark energy. Now, Pluto is not evil, but it can almost feel that way at times. Now, it destroys things that are not just or that are not working. Now, that could be very difficult though, because we may be relying on something. If we are putting our power into something and thinking we're powerful because of something outside of ourselves, Pluto will come along and take that away to show us that our power relies on truly just ourselves. Again, this is the moon we're talking about. This is just going to be a little blip in the radar, and then it will go away. But there could be some dark, ominous kind of energies or undertones. I would expect. But these all briefly, they very quickly melt away because Eastern Standard Time, right before midnight, the moon will enter Leo. So depending on where you are, the moon will enter Leo either June 30th or July 1st, either Thursday or Friday. But for us on Eastern Standard Time, we'll have that kind of Plutonian dark themes in the evening, and then Moon leaves that aspect, enters Leo. It's much happier, much more sunshiny. And then that brings us to Friday. So Friday, July 1st, we have main aspect is Mars squaring Pluto. So that's kind of interesting because Moon has moved on. Moon is in Leo. Moon is in Leo. So did I say Mars squaring Leo? Mars squaring Pluto? Mars squares Pluto today, so that's very interesting because Moon has just entered Leo. So as far as the Moon goes, the general focus is more upbeat, more happy-go-lucky, more kind of childlike and fun. We experience a lot of these more fun energies in Leo, I would say. Meanwhile, though, Mars does make that square aspect to Pluto, so that could be a little bit more intense. Mars is representing our personal desires and our ambitions, and then it squares Pluto, so it shows that we may be confronted with seeing our desires actually realistic? Are we limited in some way? And these limitations would ultimately come within us. It's not really like Saturn where it's a, like time, money, energy type of thing, like it's a physical limitation. With Pluto, it's a more kind of psychological limitation. So we may want something, but then we may realize we're wanting something that's actually damaging for us. It's not in our best interest. Or maybe we want something, but we realize that we have some kind of fear that's holding us back from actually getting it. Or maybe we want something, but we're also kind of simultaneously afraid of it. All these issues kind of come up with Mars square Pluto. So it's hard to give you advice because with Pluto, I feel like it's very personal. It's something that you'll experience on your own and that only you will understand. And whatever this kind of fear is or this, I don't know, detrimental energy, it's something that only you will understand and ultimately only you can deal with. But generally, I would just say maybe just re-examine your desires, your ambitions, and see if they're actually worthwhile. For most of us, this will not be a big deal, but if you do have planets at the end of cardinal signs, so I'd say within, let's say 25 to 29 degrees of the cardinal signs, those would be Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn. You will feel this very much more directly, much more tangibly. It will be a bigger deal, generally speaking. So you'll really have to think, what have I been working on? What are my ambitions? Is this worthwhile? Is this something I really want? And if I do truly want it and it's good for me, what's holding me back from achieving it? I would say to just kind of re-examine all that and be honest with yourself because there may be some kind of fear or denial involved. So if you are open to that kind of consciousness, then I think that would be beneficial. Okay, moving on, moving on. Saturday, July 2nd, we have Mercury making two aspects today. So Mercury trines Saturn at 24 degrees, and then it also squares Neptune at 25 degrees. Mercury's cruising now. Mercury is in its normal state, out of retrograde, out of post shadow, cruising along, making multiple aspects a day. That's pretty normal for Mercury, especially since Neptune and Saturn are almost at the same degree of their respective signs. So as Mercury makes these aspects to these more outer planets, the day-to-day focus, the day-to-day mental focus represented by Mercury makes these connections to much larger kind of undertones of history and society, which are indicated by Neptune and Saturn. So Mercury squaring Neptune shows maybe a crisis of consciousness with our beliefs and with our ideas maybe. So there could be some kind of crisis with like propaganda or conflicting information, um, ideas, beliefs, things of that nature. I think of like mental manipulation or propaganda, or it could just be conflicting ideas. Maybe we're conflicted on what to believe in. And with Mercury trining Saturn, it shows this desire for structure, especially socially. So we're desiring kind of social cohesion, social organization, that type of thing on Saturdays. Overall, though, it looks pretty positive. I mean, Moon is still in Leo. Sun and Moon are in mutual reception the whole time that, we have Sun in Cancer with Moon in Leo. So Sun is in the Moon sign and Moon is in the Sun's sign. I hope that makes sense. Um, Sun is in Cancer, which is ruled by the Moon. Moon is in Leo, which is ruled by the Sun. So this is pretty good. They are mutually kind of helping each other. They're supporting each other. And Moon is gaining light, so we're beginning to see the first glimmerings of the Moon, and this is very metaphorical. As we see that crescent Moon start to form each night, it means that we're also beginning to see the new lunar cycle. So what is that lunar cycle bringing? It's something to do with a focus on our personal beliefs, our personal desires, our emotions, our family, our home life, our kind of emotional foundation, I guess, is what it's about. So as the moon starts to gain light, we are starting to see what what are these new developments in those areas for us. Okay, so that is where I would say to focus on. Next, going to Sunday, July 3rd. Moon makes a few aspects, and Moon will actually enter Virgo. You can see about midday Eastern Standard Time. But before it does so, Moon will trine Mars and sextile Mercury. So, okay, so Moon right at the end of Leo in the morning Eastern Standard Time trines Mars. This I really like, especially because Mars has just stepped out of that square aspect with Pluto. So I would speculate that we've all kind of undergone some kind of crisis with our ambitions and desires. Again, that's a lot more extreme for people with aspects or planets involved than the rest of us. For most of us, it would just be something minor. But we may have kind of redefined what our ambitions, our goals are. And then just after that, we have Moon trining Mars. So we really get this like inspiration or this passion. We really want to take action, and we're really optimistic about whatever we're doing. I don't know, we may have a healthy sense of competition or edginess. We want to be active. We want to be out kind of doing something physical or competing, or like this would be a good day for like sports or something, for instance. Um, let's see what else see. And also just there's so much like vibrant energy with fire signs. There's like this really tangible energy. So we'll definitely all experience that. Moon also sextiles Mercury about the same time, actually just before the Martian aspect. So as Moon sextiles Mercury, that brings a lot of Yang energy also. It's just a little bit different. Mercury in Gemini is very intellectual. It's very sociable. It's very wordy. And Moon in Leo sextiling Mercury, these are both very childlike energies, very playful, kind of fun, childlike energies. So especially combining Moon sextiling Mercury and trining Mars almost at the same time, we would be very kind of just expressive, very open, very open, expressive, energetic, vibrant, curious, playful, fiery, things of that nature. So it looks like a really fun, energetic morning on Sunday morning. Kind of unusual for a Sunday, I would say. It's almost like a little party Sunday morning. And then, like I said, around noon Eastern Standard Time, Moon does enter Virgo. So that kind of dulls things down a little bit. I hate to say that Virgo kind of kills the party a little bit. Going from Leo to Virgo can be a shock sometimes. Luckily, though, once the moon does enter Virgo, it's sort of within range of this sextile to the sun. So we're experiencing a waxing crescent moon. This is really beautiful, not only, physically observing the moon at that stage, but also the effects that it has on us. We're feeling very calm, especially because Sun is in the yin sign of Cancer, Moon is in the yin sign of Virgo. Combining both of those, we want to be more kind of calm and collected, more organized with our feelings and our physical surroundings as well. So that becomes the focus more so midday Sunday. So that I feel like that's more kind of appropriate or fitting for a Sunday. Not that I don't love all the fun, exuberant energy of Sunday morning as well. That's what I have for you though for this week. It looks like a good week. Generally, the focus is pretty scattered. There's not really a main focus. The planets are pretty scattered, and they will be scattered until November. Things get a little bit more intense. But check back in next week. We do have two planets changing signs for next week's forecast, so check that out. And then we've also got a quarter moon in Libra. So thanks for watching. I hope this helps you, and I'll talk to you later.